The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Good afternoon and welcome to Chit Chatting with Jocelyn. I'm so glad to see you again. I'm back. Last week you had Karen Testerman, my co-host, but I am back to drive you crazy and give you all sorts of information and news that you didn't know, and maybe you did, but we're just going to give you a little bit more so you can do your research and find out what is going on in New Hampshire. What is going on with elections? What is going on with COVID-19? How does this affect businesses? How does this affect us? How does this affect the schools? Well, we all know because we've been going through it for 2 years, but we're going to drill down on this a lot more today, and I have a fabulous guest, Brian LaBrie, and he is a small business owner. I'll let him give you his own background because I don't want to wreck it. And then we're going to just start down. We got 3 pages of notes here, and we're going to talk directly about how did this affect Brian? How did this affect his business? What is he seeing that's going on in the state, and what do we need to do about it? So welcome to the show, Brian. I'm so glad you could come.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
All right. Tell us a little bit about you and your business and how you got where you are right now with politics.
So as far as who I am, I have a small landscape company in Merrimack, New Hampshire, and a couple other small businesses out of Merrimack. My parents had LaBrie Construction out of Nashua for years and years, my grandparents. So I'm a native of Nashua, then I moved to Merrimack. So I'm very familiar with the southern part of the state here in Nashua. As far as COVID is concerned, and I think that's where we're going to try to go after here today.
Yep.
When COVID hit in March of 2020, it was a paradigm shift for my company. And typically we had done from the landscape perspective, we've done a lot of commercial work. And what happened is that shifted into more residential work. People were staying home. They were being, the stipends were flowing. And where the businesses kind of tried to reel it in, the people tried to spend it. So we found ourselves doing less commercial stuff and more residential stuff. So even though it may have felt, on the books like a push, it was a little bit debilitating for us because from a mobility standpoint, it's harder to negotiate and move from homeowner to homeowner to homeowner.
Then business to business to business.
Yeah, because the businesses, you get on the big jobs and you're there for 3 months.
Okay.
Renovating or doing what you're doing. The smaller jobs, listen, a dollar's a dollar, we're happy to have it. It's a little bit more challenging managing smaller projects.
Well, you would need more trucks, you need more personnel, you might be doing 2 houses a day instead of, like you said, 1 business for 3 months. So the challenge was having enough people for the jobs, having enough vehicles, having enough equipment. Now, being in landscaping, was it difficult to get materials?
So materials, that started when the supply chain kind of got jammed up. Initially, it wasn't a big deal. And then probably that happened about 6 months in, that when that started getting sticky. So the first part was, as soon as the stipend started to flow to people, I noticed the labor dropped right off. We couldn't find anybody
to work.
Nobody wanted to work. A job that was, $15 an hour for unskilled labor, which is, what it was and what it used to be and what it kind of should be in some components of what we do. It was quickly $25.
Wow.
And it went from 15 to 25 overnight, and it was almost impossible to get people to come in.
Even at $25 an hour?
I tell people, listen, I've gone from an industry where, you've seen people work at 15, 16, 17 bucks an hour for years. And, their raises would keep pace with inflation. If it's 3%, they'd get a 3% raise or whatever. And that kind of just tracked like that. And overnight, it just exploded. And it killed us because we were stuck in contracts that were fixed. And those fixed contracts had to be serviced. And I couldn't go back to those contracts and say, hey, listen, obviously you guys can see what's happening around us. It's a major league problem. I've got to go up.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
You have to.
You're bound to that contract until it expires. So that was a big challenge. Labor was a big challenge. It still is a big challenge to this day. I would say that the supply chain issues, if we're doing a walkway at your house, I've got to ask people, pick 3 components that you'd like to see, and maybe I'll be lucky enough to find one of them, source one of
Gotcha.
them. So it was a big challenge, and it continues to be. I'm hoping we're on the back 9. I mean, I think we saw the State of the Union address, and they seem to have canceled COVID instantly.
Yeah, they did.
It was good to see that.
Yeah, I wasn't so sure that was a State of the Union. I thought, I'm going to be polite, but I couldn't take my eyes off the 2 people in the back. I would just like to say to Nancy Pelosi, in my sincerest voice that I can, I think you need new dentures. And I'm trying to be really good. I'm sorry.
And I would argue she may have a hard time with that because of that supply chain.
Oh, well, maybe that's why she doesn't have new ones. You know, I'm really not trying to be rude, but if you're going to have a close-up of 3 people, I digress, I'm sorry, but you're going to have a close-up of 3 people, when you're sucking on your teeth like you got spinach in there and you can't control what your mouth is doing, and oh, by the way, could somebody please tell me what this is?
It's excitement.
When 46 is talking about burn pits. That's when the TV went off. That is scary. And then the other one, the vice president, she looked like she was in a roller coaster, you know, the ones that go straight down and you're like this?
With the bars that come like this.
Yeah, and you're pushed up back against the seat. I don't know what was up with her. It was really sad. I thought I was looking at a zombie, like I said, squashed against a seat, and I was waiting for some kind of personality. It was weird.
It was a challenging State of the Union to watch.
Yeah. Did you see? And then they panned around for the Congress. I swear one section was cut out poster board of Maxine and a few of the other ones. Their eyes never moved.
Photoshop's a great thing, you know.
Did you say that out loud? Okay, maybe CGI?
Right.
All right. We'll leave it at that. Do your own research. If we're wrong, we'll tell you we're wrong. But do some research because you know what? It's not about right. It's not about left. Does your vote count? Really, does your vote count? So, on that note, let me see. You talked about the drop-off. You talked about not being able to update the contracts because they're fixed. Trying to get people to work for you.
Which, by the way, I never thought would be a problem to the
At
level.
$25 an hour?
To the levels
Holy
that
man.
to the levels that it became a problem, I never thought it would be that much of a problem. It's always been a challenge in this industry. It's unskilled labor. There's a lot of things that dog the industry.
Yep.
You know, not a lot
High
of
turnover?
Well, sometimes there's high turnover, and education could always be sometimes a little bit higher up. You know, and we try to find the best guys that we can find. We do a very good job with it. We have a vetting process. You know, we don't hire guys that do drugs and don't show up. So, of course, with that comes a higher hourly rate. I'm all about paying somebody a good rate to make a living.
But you have to show up on time, do what's expected of you.
Yeah.
Don't slack off. Do the best that you can do so that the company keeps its good name and keeps its reputation.
It is, and that's really important. And the key here is when these people come to you and you vet them and you ask what their experience is, and it got to the point where there was people that were knocking on the door that they had, you know, maybe 5 years of experience, but they thought they were worth $90 an hour. And it got to the point where it was, but the thing was, it happened all overnight.
Right.
And that was the explosive part of this whole COVID-19, is it hit everybody fast and furious, and it just became unmanageable.
I remember some friends of my boys, and they, bartenders, et cetera, and they were getting stimulus checks, and they were getting unemployment checks, and they were making more than my sons who never stopped working, and they were working 60-hour weeks, 14-hour days, in the hot, in the cold. They never stopped.
So we battled that this year. We battled that. We had a lot of guys that would come in, and I would have, you know, I'd pull them aside and have talks with them and just make sure that they were good and make sure you're coming in tomorrow. And my core group of guys is phenomenal. I can't say enough about them. They really are just great guys. And, you know, but you'd hear grumblings of how, you know, Bob's buddy, Bill,
Is making
bank, staying home. And what happened is I came in and it started to undermine the team morale.
Right.
And it was just, whatever administration it came from, and it was both of them to a degree, that some of this started with, it was just disheartening to see that out of all the brilliant minds we have in this country, that was the solution, is to pay people to stay home.
To stay home.
And out of all the solutions that could have been possible and plausible, why would you do that? There's no turning back now.
Well, I think in honesty, it was power, so they could maintain the power, and they could keep peddling the fear. We're in charge. We're going to tell you what to do. The fear factor: if you go out, you're gonna get sick and you're gonna die.
Yeah.
And I think that was the driving force. And based on and their rally cry was, it's science, it's science. It wasn't science. Masks have never protected anybody from everything. Well, Jocelyn, the surgeons wear masks. Go talk to a surgeon, because guess what he's going to say? Because I've talked to hundreds. It's to stop the surgeon in surgery having any droplets from the surgeon falling in your body when they cut it open. That's what surgical masks are for. Surgical. Oh, God, I just sounded like 46. I shouldn't whisper. So surgical, plus the air in the operating rooms is kept at a cooler temperature. It's sterilized. It's recycled. That's why we have OSHA. And if you talk to OSHA, they talk about N95. Well, being EMS, advanced EMS 911 for 12 years, that little N95 mask, it has to be fitted to your face. You don't put it on and hang it on your mirror and then take it off and put it back on. It's one-time use. It has to be fitted to you. And oh, by the way, you put it on your face and then they put a hood over you that's sealed on you, and they spray chemicals in there with saccharin, something like that. Can't remember, it's been a while. It's sickly sweet smelling, and you keep practicing till you get no smell, and they go, okay, that one fits you, and that's the size you wear. And here's the other thing, that, it has a valve that lets the bad air out. So if you were sick, all the junk coming out of your lungs goes out into the air to everybody else. Those are supposed to be used in very specific settings, but everybody forgot that science and what OSHA had put out.
What it was a prop in the theater production, is what it was, in my opinion. And,
I agree.
I respect people that wear them. I respect people that make that decision to wear them. I think
it's your choice.
It's your choice. And I think we should respect the choice component, because, at the end of the day, that's what this country's all about, is being able to have a choice. So if you want to use it, then that's your choice.
If that makes you feel better.
Don't push it on me.
Correct.
And don't push it on my team. And if they want to wear it, they can wear it. So that was an issue. The staying at home, to get back to the subject, the staying at home and being paid to stay home started to outweigh what the guys were netting in their paychecks. And it became a very difficult hurdle to kind of overcome, because not only was it a financial hurdle, it was a morale hurdle.
Yep.
I had to be like, I'm the paycheck guy at the end of the week, but I'm also the morale guy. I gotta say, listen, you're doing the right thing coming to work. I had to keep telling them, you're doing the right thing coming to work. If you feel comfortable, put your mask and keep your social distancing, but you're really doing the right thing coming to work.
Yeah, all three of my boys worked all the way through. My one son works in the hospital down in Boston, so front lines. Now he's, garbage under people's feet, but he was front lines. And my two boys, one drills wells and drives a big rig, and the other one builds sheds and outdoor garages and stuff. And that's what they do. They like to work with their hands. They made a lot of money. But there were days when they're like, I'm freezing at, 0 degrees. I'm drilling wells, or I'm building houses and building this, and I'm freezing, and so doesn't show up, and this one doesn't show up, and they get bumped up the tree because they show up all the time, and but you keep shuffling new people underneath, and that's hard with the morale as well.
That's taxing. You got to retrain everybody after break. It's horrible.
Exactly.
So it's a battle. There's no doubt. COVID made a already difficult industry. It made it tough.
Yep. Do you think it's looking up now?
That's a great question, because now we just get this COVID behind us, and supposedly it's behind us.
And now we've got fuel
and now
issues.
You've got fuel issues, and you've got unrest on the horizon, and you've got other things to worry about. and fuel is not just fuel at the gas pump. As a matter of fact,
heating.
I was in Amherst today.
Yeah.
And at the town center there, the nice little gas station they have, I looked up and I saw diesel, because my truck's a diesel,
Mm-hmm.
$4.59. It's unbelievable. And Merrimack was $4.07 yesterday. I didn't look today. You know,
I'm sure it's gone up.
it's gone up.
It's literally going up overnight.
It's going up by the hour. And the other component to this is it's not just fuel. It's hair products and clothes and car
Everything.
products and everything else. You know,
Food.
a car industry that's already beat up is really going to be beat up now. You know, I mean, that's another thing there is vehicles.
I was just going to say,
Between the three businesses that we have, you know, we have probably at this point almost 25 different trucks. And it's hard to replace those now. So I find myself pouring tons of money
Into
the
repairs.
truck that should have been gone 2 years ago,
Right.
just to keep it alive, because there's nothing out there. You know, I talked to Dennis McDivitt today up at Manchester Mac, and there's no Isuzus coming in. There's nothing on the horizon, and I need 2 of them.
wow.
You know, and we're forced to just make do with what we have.
Yep.
It's kind of old school in a way. You know, I'm hoping we can get beyond it soon. It's taxing. I don't have gray hair. It's going to accumulate soon.
You don't lose sleep at night, do you?
I do.
You do.
I do.
I
do.
knew you were going to say that.
I do. And I think any business owner, unless you're really on the other side of it financially, you're going to lose sleep.
So how did PPP work for you? Did it?
So PPP did work for us. It was a very short-term I call it a Band-Aid.
Yep.
It was a very temporary, small Band-Aid. It helped fill the gap when we couldn't get like labor.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? And it helped bring in, you know, here we are in our industry. If you can't get labor through, you know, traditional means, you go to like Labor Ready and staffing services, which are outrageously priced.
Expensive,
So
yeah.
now it's not 25, now it's 40.
Because they're the middlemen.
Right. So it's just they got to pay.
Everybody's gotta get their cut.
Exactly. So, you know, between that and elevated costs on things, it did help us out a little bit. Again, it's not the ideal. I guess it's not the ideal silver bullet, but it was there and it helped.
It was there at the time.
Yeah.
So let's say things straighten out. Let's say things get back to normal. And do you see these prices coming back down, or do you see that these are going to be the wages from now on?
So let me ask you this question. I just hired you at $70,000 a year. You're really worth $35 in a normal market pre-COVID.
Yep.
We get on the other side of this, say things do come back down,
Yep.
prices come back down, we
And
start
you ask
drilling, we
me.
get oil, right? And I'm going to ask you, how do you feel? I'm not going to bring you down to 35 because we got to account for a few years that have gone by, but I'm thinking more like 40. What are your thoughts?
I'm going to go find another job.
Because there's 8 other guys that will pay you the 75.
Correct.
So it's not coming back. It's never coming back. So what today's rates are, they are.
They are.
And I can tell you, I'm not paying for it. That has to get transferred
Yep.
over to contracts and everybody else. I can't afford
Supplies.
it. Supplies and jobs that I do. There's just nothing, as business owners, there's nothing we
That
can
you
do
can do.
about it.
Yeah.
So we have to pass the cost along. And it's horrible. I have incredible customers, like I have incredible employees, and I have to now show these people that what we did last year is now going to cost 2x.
Right.
And they're going to, most of them get it because
Correct.
they've seen it, but still it's not fair for me to have to ask them that.
It's I'm so glad I don't own a business anymore. I mean, truly, I am super happy. I owned a business for 25 years, and I am so glad I don't, because I don't know what I would have done. And I think you're exactly right. Where we are now, going forward, this is going to be unbelievably challenging. I mean, perhaps if they open up the pipeline, which we can talk about in the second half of the show, you know, your thoughts on that, the gas prices potentially could come down and help us all out a bit. But as far as wages and stuff and benefits, I think we are where we are.
So along with wages going up, so did rents. And so
Correct.
did everything else, groceries and everything else. Everything else went up together. So you can't bring one down without bringing them all down.
Correct.
And it's not going to happen.
So they're all going to be.
There's too many industries involved. There's too much price gouging involved. It's it's a big challenge. It's really a big challenge, and we need leadership, and we don't have it.
We don't have it. Well, we certainly don't with this administration. And I think that, trickles down into the state level, the city level, the town level. And we're certainly seeing that. I mean, look at a couple snowstorms that we've had lately. They don't have enough DPW workers. So our roads are not being plowed like we're used to. Our taxes are going through the roof. I don't know about Merrimack, but in Amherst, they've got huge bonds coming up for the schools, of which we're losing 20 to 25% of the student population. So how come my taxes are going up and I've got less?
Well, you're having to pay people more.
Right.
So the DPW guys that used to pay nothing, which are incredibly dedicated people, should have always been making more.
Yep.
Now, I can say, respectfully, that's one department.
Yep.
That deserves to be paid.
Oh, I agree. They used to do when I would go in the ambulance, they literally, if it was a really, really bad storm, I would have a DPW guy right in front of me, and they would clear the driveway. So no, I'm totally there with you.
These guys are unsung heroes. That's the most thankless job in the world. So,
I know.
But I know what you're saying. Everybody in the world is just getting a raise, and we're just not being able to keep pace with it.
Yep.
And I think it's because it just came on so quick and so fast that it's just.
It's like an explosion, and you just can't put everything back in the can. It's like that little can that you pull it at New Year's.
Yep.
You can't put it all back in.
No.
You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube either. So I think it's kind of that kind of scenario. The other thing is I think back to working in EMS, and I think I started at $8 an hour, no benefits, no overtime, no holiday pay, no vacation. 11 years ago, 10 years ago. That's not a long time ago.
It's not.
It's not a long time ago. When I went full-time 911 in Manchester, I think we made it up to 13, 14, but I had overtime. I didn't need the benefits because back then, if your husband had benefits, then you just were on theirs.
Sure.
Nowadays, it's not like that. That choice has been taken away from you. We had vacations. We never usually got them because you were always covering for someone else.
Exactly.
So I look at people earning $15 and $20 and $25 an hour, and I think to all my EMS 911 responders out there, what we did, and it's not just, we saved lives, but we did. The teamwork, the hard work we did, the hundreds of pounds of equipment that we carry on a daily basis, hourly basis, the 5 flights of stairs that we'd go up. It's hard, it's really hard for me to watch people sit at home and take a stimulus package, take a stimulus check, and watch others go to work and just sit there, literally sitting on the couch eating bonbons.
And that was a big reality.
It horrifies me.
It was almost a 1-to-1 ratio at one point, it felt like. For every worker I got in, there was one guy that was on the couch. And they actually, more than that, they all had 2 of their friends that weren't working. And it was contagious.
Yep.
And I'm glad that component is behind us.
I am
I hope
too.
that never comes back. That was, PPP is one thing because you don't have any workers. That's a whole nother thing. It was really a poor design. And you'd like to think that in this day and age, the leadership that we have, both town through federal, you would like to think that they're smarter than that, and that when they sit in these big brain trusts, sit in these think tanks, and they come up with these schemes, whether it's Jay Powell or whoever it is that comes up with how we're going to run the world financially, these are weak at best ideas.
Yep.
Weak.
What are they designed to do? What truly was the point of all of this?
Regardless of what the design was, right? It ended up being more of a socialist.
Correct. Model.
It was.
And
like
that was
everybody
that was
becomes.
pretty fast-tracked, if you ask me.
It was. And you had all the right pieces in place. You had the pandemic, and then you needed this to follow the pandemic. And it's and you can talk conspiracy theory all day long, and at the end of the day, nobody has the hard evidence for these things. But at the end of the day, the people are not stupid either. People are very smart and savvy. And I would like to say that a huge part of our country can see right through this.
Absolutely.
And I think it's going to show in the next election. I think you're going to see if we can get, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but if you can get this automated voting in these voting machines and these mail-in voting and all this stuff, if you can get that to be suppressed and go back to old school where you got to physically show up, show an ID, and then go vote.
And it's not a voting month, it's a voting day.
And it's a voting day, you know. I understand.
And make it a holiday if you have to. Make it a federal holiday. I don't care, but get everybody there to vote. But it's not a voting week. It's not a voting month. It's not a vote.
I don't know when that changed. I don't know when that changed. How did that change? Because I'll tell you, that felt like it changed overnight.
It did. And you know what? We can talk about that in the second half. Let's talk about the voting machines. Let's talk about when did it change? How did it come about? What do we believe? What do we feel? What do we think? But I think the bottom line is that we as citizens, we as taxpayers, we as voters need to feel there is integrity. I am not going to say the word transparency because guess what? You can look at a pile of poop with very transparent with my glasses and it's still a pile of poop. We need to have accountability. There has to be integrity, and it has to be for every legal citizen and voter and taxpayer in the United States and in every city and in every town. And we cannot be silenced, and I truly feel we are being silenced, have been silenced. So on that note, we are going to take a quick break, and I will be back chit-chatting with Jocelyn, and my guest is Brian LaBrie. Welcome back to Chit Chatting with Jocelyn. I am so glad that you stayed with us, and my guest is still Brian LaBrie. He hung around. I didn't scare him off, or I didn't bore him to death. So we're going to go for part two. The first half, we were talking about what it was like to have a business during COVID-19, how it affected employment, his employees, what it did to his business, the costs, and just everything that he's had to deal with for the last 2 years, as have many of you that are small business owners. And I don't think the story would be terribly different, and I think it's something that we all need to talk about honestly. So in this half, though, we are going to talk about, got my notes here so I don't go off on a tangent, not that I ever do that, the past election. And I know a lot of people get their pants in a twist. They get all upset and go, oh, you people on the right. Oh, you. We've got a big problem in the United States. And it's a big problem in New Hampshire, which is what we're going to focus on. But we have machines called Diebold, AccuVote. There's some other names for them, machines that are owned by Dominion. The company Dominion is out of Canada. And they've been around for 35, 40, 50 years. And in many, many cities and towns and states, they have never been replaced. Georgia just did. We've got some big issues with those. The biggest issue in New Hampshire that we've come across right now is that they were put in by the legislature, 1979, 80, somewhere in there, that were put in here on a trial basis. It's now been 35 years. That's a pretty long trial, and we, the taxpayers, have been paying for them and their maintenance and the contracts, et cetera, for 35 years. At no time did we ever vote this in. At no time, here's the big clincher, the Constitution of the state of New Hampshire was never amended to allow for these machines. And some may say, well, there's technology. You have to move along with the times. You know, we have to stay up with the times. We can't possibly be up all night counting these paper ballots. Yes, you can. Because if it was so important, the legislature would have amended the Constitution and put it up for a vote with you and me. That's how you do it. You don't just in the dark of the night go, well, you know, it's 1979 and we need these machines because we're all so good and we're just going to flip these things through the machine. I mean, it's a great idea, but we're just going to put them through the machines and everything's going to be hunky-dory and there's never going to be any fraud and there's going to be no problems. And we're not going to tell anybody because they're just going to love it. We're too stupid to understand that maybe we need machines to count the ballots and some procedures and oversight? No, we're just the debt slaves. In New Hampshire, we have a problem. We have a company, LHS, and they have the maintenance contracts for 5 or 6 different states. New England, they have the contracts here for New Hampshire. We have the Diebold AccuVote machines in every town, almost every town. And you know about the Wyndham audit. You know about the Wyndham problem. There are problems with these machines. They have not been resolved. Nothing has changed. Starting next week on Tuesday, the town of Amherst is going to be using these machines. Nothing's been resolved. Nothing's been fixed. So I'm going to talk with Brian now about how does he feel about these machines? What is he seeing? What have you observed?
So my opinion of this is I'm a Gen X, old school as the day is long. I believe in showing up to vote, old school style, driver's license, paper ballots, going back like it was done 1,000 years ago. I realize that maybe it's more labor intensive to do that, but it's also a pretty big deal. Elections have
big deal.
Elections have big consequences. So I think it's important to maybe invest in those folks that do the counting and whatnot. But I think this whole thing's gotten away with us. The mail-in votes, the machine voting. I mean, we're streamlining this to the point where it just doesn't have the integrity that it used to have, and we're portraying it like integrity doesn't matter.
Correct.
So that's the issue. I think I'm not for these machines. I never have been. I'm not for mail-in voting. My opinion is the older school it is, the better it is.
I agree. Now, absentee voting, if you read the RSAs, if you read the procedures, it is very specific. If you are out of the country, out of the state for legit reasons, or you're handicapped. During COVID, it got expanded to because I'm afraid, I don't want to drive.
So,
the reasons were so many, and I just can't think of them. But they were expanded by the governors who did not have the authority to make law or change them, because we have 3 branches of government, and the legislature is the ones who make law. They also, all these 3 branches of government, are not allowed to give away their power to another branch. That's in the Constitution. But yet we saw that for these 3 years. So now we have election month.
it was played off like a special exception is what it was. And now that, we're effectively, it's in the rear view, COVID, this goes back to the question you asked me, do you see wages coming down again? I don't. Do I see this going back to old school voting? I don't. I see this being a continued problem unless somebody steps up and does something about it. And I think it's a battle.
Oh, it's definitely going to be a battle.
And I don't think it's going to happen overnight. I think it's going to need time and money and attorneys and knowledge and people and a rebellion, peaceful rebellion, and a
paper rebellion.
Or a paper rebellion.
Constitutional rebellion, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot to go back to where we were. You're asking me to solve the same problem that we solved with the money paying people per hour.
Correct.
You're not going to get the toothpaste back in the tube.
So we have paper ballots in New Hampshire. Let's count them. We need the voters, all voters, to step up and be there at night to help with the counting. And people say, well, Nashua was so big, Manchester's so big. You have precincts. So if there were people volunteering, taking real training, not fake training, pretend training to be able to do this, and you have the right amount of people per precinct, it's the same as counting Amherst or counting Milford. I know Merrimack has precincts. So if you have people in each precinct to count, it's no different than a small town. Count per precinct. But you have to do your civic duty. Oh, wait a minute, they don't teach civics in high school anymore, and you don't take a civics test, even though it's in the Constitution. Oh, by the way. These are the things that are not being followed. They have shoved them under the carpet, put them in the desk drawer, and ignored them because it wasn't convenient. Like you said, they want to keep you here.
They've streamlined this under the veil of technology. That's what's
I
happened.
like that. I like that phrasing, streamlined under
The veil
guise
of technology.
of technology.
That's what's happened here.
Yep.
And everybody has an iPhone and everybody's on the tech right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can make this look like that and hide it underneath that, then they will.
Well, there's also the
But constitutionally,
Yeah.
it's not legit.
No, not at all. The
And that's where-
Constitution says. Do you know? And
I
I'm
don't
not
know,
putting you on the
verbatim,
spot.
Verbatim, I don't know what it is,
Right.
but what I do know is that this was never voted in.
Correct.
I know that for a fact, that it was never voted in, and
Yep.
it was just here, let's try this, like you said earlier.
It's a trial basis.
It's like a trial basis type of thing.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, it's never been proven to be 100% accurate.
Correct.
There's no data that supports that.
Correct.
And here we are saying that our elections are the biggest thing, every 2 years or 4 years, which they are, and they have consequences. And it's amazing to sit back, third party removed, and watch these elections go in different crazy directions when people that campaign out of their basements and never show up for anything win by a landslide.
Yep.
It's incredible.
Well, what's incredible to me is in that night I was 11-3. So here's the problem I found. So 11-3 I voted in person in the town of Amherst, and I go off that night to be with Steve Negron. I was going to do an interview with him, and we're watching on the big screen the numbers. And we're standing there, and I'm looking at numbers for one person, and it wasn't Trump. I mean, it was, but there were other people where their numbers started going backwards, and the other person's numbers were going forwards. And there was some Republican, there was some Democrat. So I'm all conservative, but right is right and wrong is wrong, and truth is truth. Fact is fact. I was looking at numbers in front of my face going down 50, going down 20, and then the other person going up 50. I have never seen anything like that in my life. We were absolutely dumbfounded and freaking out. I was like, Steve, I'm out of here. Did the interview. I went home. I sat down looking at the big screen at home, and I am watching the presidential race in these states, and I was screenshotting them. And it's really strange. You know what? All those screenshots are gone off my phone, and I didn't erase them. I kid you not. I watched this state, that state, Bernie Sanders go up, and whoever's against him go down. I watched Trump go down, and I watched Biden go up. State upon state upon state, town upon town upon town. No one to this day has explained to me how that happens. Can one person, their numbers go up, their votes go up? Yeah. But the other person's go down? In the history, I have never, ever, ever seen that.
If we truly believe that our election process is wholesome and genuine and important, it needs to change. Because technology is not bulletproof. Whether there was sinister things at work, or there wasn't, at the end of the day, the net result was the same.
Correct.
It was going backwards.
Yep.
So, we can call it whatever you'd like to call it, but I guess my belief is, you still get out of your car to pump gas. It hasn't changed
Nope.
since the car was invented, and it works fine.
There might be a computer in it running now, but you still get out and pump
You still
the gas.
get out and pump it even when it's 3 degrees out.
And you know what? When it goes to electric,
Yep.
you're still going to have to
still
get
gonna
out
have to plug
and
it in.
plug it in
So
and
there are
wait 8 hours.
There's certain things in life, right? Wait 8 hours. There's certain things in life that shouldn't change. It's a wholesome, genuine, awesome process that we're afforded as a democracy. We should be respectful of it and glad to help out and do our civic duty.
Correct.
And take the proper certifications to do it. And then, when that happens, all these things they just go away.
They do.
They go
Stand shoulder to shoulder, citizen by citizen,
Yep.
and make sure. Paper ballots, we have them. Let's use them. The other thing in many towns, Merrimack was one of them, a different circumstance than Amherst. Bedford was the same. There was 5 or 6 townspeople came to me. I didn't know what I was looking up. I went and got the tally tapes, and I looked at them, and in the town of Amherst, machine says 10:23. In the other 2 machines, the top of the tape said 11:3.
I mean, is the calibration not being done? I mean, whoever services these machines, and you stated it earlier,
LHS.
LHS. I mean, is there a spec on calibration that has to be followed by a certain entity in the state that monitors this?
It's all a big secret.
Well,
You
it
get
should-
the activity. I mean, I've filed FOIAs, and I have a wonderful town clerks, and they give me the information I need. I filed a FOIA. They give me the information. They double check. And we've got maintenance logs that don't have a full description of what's being done. What happened to every 2 years these machines must be certified? Where's the certification? Where's the piece of paper that says this machine has been certified because of blah, 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 proper signatures and a date? There's none of those. There is no certification, yet it says it must be. And when they do maintenance, does that decertify the machine? So that has to be recertified? I mean, there's all these questions, and it throws doubt in the way. And when you don't answer it and you don't address it, you are increasing the doubt of the voter, and you are definitely increasing or decreasing the integrity
I'm going
of the
to
vote.
give you a quick scenario. We can move on.
Okay.
New Hampshire DES makes guys that plow snow like me sign up for a program called Green Snow Pro. In this organization, we have to calibrate our salt spreaders
Okay.
because they don't want overages. We're watching for wetlands and everything else. So you have oversight from the state on something that's important. Salt not contaminating the whole world,
Correct.
right? That is one fraction of what voting does. Where is the oversight on these machines?
None.
There should be at a minimum a small oversight committee that just makes sure that everything, all the boxes are checked.
And there should be, and it should not be any political people.
No,
Should be no appointed positions.
absolutely, yeah.
It needs to be we the people, by the people, for the people.
Yeah, and the way out on there?
Though I was just going to ask you.
Yeah.
So what do you feel is the way out? I think, I'll just give you mine. I believe we have to follow the Constitution as it was written because no one has amended. If you haven't amended it, it has to be as is, and the Supreme Court of New Hampshire, yes, people, there is one, will stand with the Founding Fathers as it was written. I believe we don't need any machines, get rid of them. And I think that we need to have civics and the civic duty brought back, and that people must be a citizen of the state, not a resident, not, I bought a house. You must be a citizen, whether you were born here or you swore an oath, an affirmation to be a citizen, which I did because I was born in Washington, D.C. So I really am a citizen of the United States. If you were born in New Hampshire, you're a citizen of New Hampshire. I became a citizen of New Hampshire, so I was following the Constitution, and I can vote. What do you think's the way out?
I think the first part is you got to secure voting. You have to secure voting. Otherwise, all the rest of it is all for naught.
Meaning not have voting for a week or a month?
You can't have voting for a month. You can't have every excuse in the world to
For an
send to be able to
absentee.
mail
Yep.
a vote in.
Yep.
And you've got to get these machines offline unless they're going to be constitutionally approved. That's three things right there.
Yep.
Then we need leadership, which we don't have. We need brilliant leadership that's qualified. A guy like Don Bolduc, for example, right?
Oh, what a wonderful guy.
If we can get him into a senator's seat, I mean, there is no from a foreign
We
policy,
need to get him in a senator's seat.
from a foreign policy perspective, to sit on intel committees, there is no better candidate.
Correct.
Zero. Hassan and Shaheen could not even hold a half a candle to this guy.
They cannot hold the reins of the horses that he rode over in Afghanistan.
They never could.
They're not qualified
They never
to.
could. And it would be, for Don to sacrifice more to his country to go sit in that Senate seat and just have to listen to the obnoxious senators to the left and to the right. I mean, we owe this guy even more of a debt of gratitude.
Yep.
He is an incredible person. He is super talented. He has a very calm personality.
He's very calm.
He is a very, 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 very good guy. And it's a shame. I'll tell you what, it will be a shame if he does not get elected in November. An absolute shame.
It was absolutely vile that he wasn't elected the last time.
Yeah.
He should have been there. And this time, he's gone back to school. He's become a police officer on top of serving his country.
His foreign policy is second to none.
Yep.
He knows how Ukrainians and Russians and Afghans sleep, eat, and breathe. He knows it all.
Inside out and backwards.
He knows it all. He has more knowledge on that Intel committee, if he was to sit on it,
Yep.
than the whole Intel committee combined.
Correct.
Because he's been there, he's shaved with these people, he's done everything with these folks, and he's had loss under his command. He's lost people.
He's dealt with that. He's had to speak to those parents and those families
And I'll
directly.
tell you another thing.
And he didn't look at his watch.
He never looked at his watch. And I'll tell you another thing. To be a president of the United States and order troops into harm's way, my opinion, you should have some form of military experience.
Yes.
You should have at least a very bare minimum boot camp with a few years before you can
Military school?
You have to have it. You have to have it because you don't understand what you're doing
Correct.
unless you know. And this goes for all parties. This is across the
absolutely.
board. I really believe in that. I also believe that if you're going to run our budget,
You should have
you should
worked
run a
on one.
business. You
I
should have run a
yep.
business. Any kind of business.
But Don, I forget how many millions of dollars, it might have been billions, but I think it's millions.
He was a 2-for-1.
Right.
He was a 2-for-1. He was,
He's done $1 million budgets the whole time.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
he knows how to do that. He knows where he has to cut back. He knows where the money needs to be, and he knows how to make it work. What more do you want?
That's why I'm passionate about seeing him win, because I think he really, if we miss this opportunity as the state of New Hampshire voters,
shame on
this is
us.
a huge mistake, especially in this time right now where foreign policy with what's going on in
everything.
Ukraine is it's so much on the top of the paper right now.
Here's the other thing. Sorry to interrupt. He has been on every major news show with Hannity, Tucker, Pete Santilli. He's been on Newsmax. He's been, I can't even tell you, there's so many. He has done so many interviews. They've been talking with him since the fiasco in Afghanistan. And he has said every single time what should be done. I haven't heard word one from anybody else at all. And if they did, it was platitudes and repeating, standing on someone else's shoulders, and they weren't saying anything. He has exactly what they need to do.
I can tell you what, Putin's got his finger on that trigger for nuclear war, okay? And anybody, you can say whatever you want. At the end of the day, he's got two ways out of this in Ukraine. Suicide or pushing a button. And he's not going to do the first.
Nope.
You need a guy like Don Bolduc in there to just know what he's going to do next.
Correct.
And it's just critical.
And be 10 steps ahead instead of 20 steps behind.
Like we always are.
Or, gee, shut down our pipeline, shut down our energy independence, and then buy 800,000, I forget what the number is, barrels of oil per day from Russia. So this is what they say when you're talking out of one side of your mouth and saying something on the other. That's what we're looking at right now with this administration.
The leadership is weak. The
leadership is weak, and they're ignorant.
It's weak. It's ignorant. It's nothing. It's arrogant.
It's un-American.
It's everything can happen. Nothing will happen to us. We're in the United States, and we watched Russia collapse in 7 days.
Yep.
Collapse.
Yep. The Cold War.
It's not worth it. Their dollar's not worth anything. Everybody's moving out.
Yep.
The kids are quitting in the army, and this is a disaster for Putin. And like we talk about not coming back and wages not coming back down, Russia will never be what it was.
Correct.
If we're here in a month, it's that serious.
Yeah.
My heart is 100% with people that are full foreign policy right now.
I agree.
And we just are not blessed with enough of it. And Don could sit in 10 of those chairs, and we could eliminate 10 senators for what he could fill.
Exactly.
And it's just, I really hope that, if there's one message and one takeaway out of our talk tonight, it's really important that the folks listening get a good pulse on who he is. And if you don't know who he is,
Find out. Do your research.
go on Wikipedia and look and see who he is. You will not be able to get your head around what this man has accomplished. He is really an incredible American.
And he will come speak to you anywhere. And he is for the veterans. He is for 911 responders. He's for everybody. And he is a great dad. He's a great husband. He's a great grandfather. He's a patriot. He's an American. He follows the law. He knows the Constitution. I don't see that in anybody else. I don't see that in anybody else.
Certainly not in our sitting senators.
No.
Certainly not
Definitely
in our
not in our
sitting
sitting senators.
He's got it together, and I really hope the best for him and his campaign. And I hope that other folks at Granite Staters
Well,
will
support
see this.
him.
We'll support him.
I think we need to support him with our votes. We need to support him with donations. We need to make our voices heard, and this is how you do it, by picking the correct people. Not because I like him and not because I want to have a beer with him or her. You know, we have Karen Testerman running for governor. We have got to get the correct people in the correct places and set this state, this country, back on the correct footing. And we cannot keep letting people shoot us in the foot, sell us to another country, break the Constitution, and just keep pushing us down and forging ahead because they want to go down in history. Because that's what I'm looking at, going down in history.
I had one last sentence on, on the bottom there.
Yes, your last note is, time is running out for America to regain its impeccable reputation for being the land of the free and home of the brave.
It is. It is. And it's
wonderful.
We need to get involved now before it's too late.
We need to work as a team.
And we don't need to be radical about it.
No.
We don't need to push radical, agendas that are burning and looting and just crazy stuff like that. We need to be intelligent and smart and creative and follow the Constitution and put the right people in the right seat. Dawn's a great example of that. There's other great candidates running.
Absolutely. Do your research.
Do your research. And
don't just go in and guess.
Don't just go in and guess, and don't mail in your vote.
Correct. Don't mail in your vote. And when you do go in, make sure that your name is the only name. If your husband or wife has passed, make sure their name is off. Double check. Go through that list. Don't be lazy about it, because you might find grandma or grandpa on there and, they're voting from the cemetery someplace else. And I'm not kidding, because we have a lot of ghost voters and dead voters in this state and many other states, and that is not acceptable. It's not cute. It's not funny. And we must make sure that our town clerks purge the lists, and I think it should be every year, not every 10. I want to thank you so much for coming in. This has been a fabulous interview.
Jocelyn, it's been fantastic.
Oh my goodness, it's been wonderful. We met at a dinner, and I said, you need to come in and do a show, and Brian said yes, so I'm so glad you did. We definitely want to have you come back. I want to hear more about where the business is going, how it's changing. Are things getting better with employees? Are people rallying around and hiring you to keep doing more and more jobs? And then let's come back and talk about what happened in the election in Merrimack. Let's go through that and check back in again another time on the primary and see where we are.
Happy to do it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Have a great night.
You too.
All right, everybody. I'll see you next time. Chit-chatting with Jocelyn. The show will be out soon. Share. Tell everybody, let them watch us. Whether you're right or you're left, it doesn't matter. Truth matters, and so do facts.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.